Hi, thank you for joining me. So, I know I said that I'm trying to step away from YouTube a little bit, but for some reason I feel like making videos right now, so I wanted to just talk to you guys about a show that I just rewatched for the first time in probably about 18 years, and that is Niea Under 7. This is a show, this is more or less by this is by some of the people, let me say, that worked on Serial Experiments, Lane. I'm not really up on the development of all of these series that came out around, the same time. Let's see, I have Lane here. This is copyright 1998. Now, the character designer for this, from what I understand, is Yoshitoshi Abe. And I will be lying if I would say that when my buddy and I watched Lane originally, we were very taken with it, very taken with the designs too. This designer, Toshi Abe is the designs are very distinctive. And so when we saw, oh, there's another series, it seems like it's kind of by like the same people. We definitely wanted to check it out. So my buddy picked these DVDs up. These are not the same DVDs. I reacquired these back a handful of years ago. I think they probably featured them in a pickups video at one point. But these, from what I understand, do your own research on this. But it seems like this is just something else the studio did. Yoshitoshi Abe came up with the idea, I think, for like the premise of this, and of course did the designs again. And I don't know that it was just the character designs, but they're obviously an illustrator, and I think they've done like background and character work on like a bunch of anime and stuff like that. So anyway, I just wanted to see this again. Now the story is it's interesting. I don't want to compare it too much with Lane because, as far as I understand, Lane did have a different writer. But it does feel similar in some ways. I think that they are both. Well, let me just stick with this. So this has, I would say, more like themes and characters than it does plot. I mean, there's a story to it. The story is mostly about a struggling bathhouse, a Japanese bathhouse, where people will go because they don't have hot water and baths in their homes, maybe so that their homes can be smaller, or just because that was expensive or something, and so they decided to make communal bathing areas where people could go. They would heat up a whole bunch of water, people could go and pay for that, and then they would get to take hot baths in a big communal bath. This is a thing in Japan. I think these bathhouses still exist, certainly, and so that's kind of like, if you had to say like what is this about, that's kind of what it's about on an episode by episode basis. But our main characters, I guess, are really I forgot this character's name, Mayuko Chigasaki. And they call her Mayu, I think, or Mayuko. Most of the characters do in the series. And then Niea, who is an alien. And by alien, I mean like from outer space, alien. But it's interesting because I think so, on sort of more like a character and themes level, this story deals a lot with, I feel like it's making some statements, or at least it's bringing up the tension that I think is sort of like uniquely in Japan, of having this very homogenous society that then outsiders do exist and live in Japan. People from East Asia, indigenous peoples, the Ainu and things like that, but also just their relationships. I mean, in this there's these aliens from outer space, a lot of them adopt sort of other sort of human Earth cultures to kind of emulate. So like you'll have this one alien who basically he's decided to adopt Indian culture as his culture, as an alien living in Japan. There's another character who sort of adopted Chinese culture as their culture, as a literal space alien living in Japan. So I feel like it's talking a little bit more about, you know, maybe actual Indian foreigners living in Japan and actual Chinese foreigners living in Japan. And so as an American, like, I don't have much context for that sort of cultural commentary in this show. So, I mean, that's just an interesting thing about animation from Japan. You know, is that it can be talking about these things that maybe are very culturally relevant. That, you know, as a foreigner myself, like, I kind of have to just accept that that I'm not going to necessarily understand the whole context for it. I think this can be very interesting, though, for foreigners. You know, just from the perspective of a show that is sort of talking about themes around tensions with sort of like the you know, what is supposed to be very homogenous Japanese culture, and the intrusion into that of sort of very alien characters with alien cultures. And, you know, so in addition to that, that's not the whole story. We're following this character. She's sort of your typical down on her luck Ronin character, in that she is, like, she wasn't able to get into college, I guess, and is sort of attending a cram school to take her college examination sort of outside of high school. So she has to provide for herself. She's working part-time jobs. She's living at this, like, in a rented room above this bathhouse. It's a Japanese bathhouse. And so she's basically living in, like, a poor area, poor district, a poor town. And where a whole bunch of these aliens are. So, you know, again, like, you can sort of see, like, the cultural, like the themes here that they're working with here. So poverty is kind of one of them, just sort of the struggles of daily life, you know, modern life. And also, like, I think as an adult, I kind of wanted to come back to this series because I watched this when I was a kid, you know. I mean, you go back 18 years ago and I was, like, 18 years old. I mean, I'm a little older than that, but more or less, I was young. And so, you know, it's, you know, I wanted to come back to this with adult eyes. And so I think I was really able to identify with some of the characters a little bit more and sort of follow the themes of this a little bit more, and I think get a little bit more out of this. I think something that I struggle with both Niea Under 7 and Lane, which I need to rewatch. I have rewatched this, I believe, since, you know, way back in, like, 1998 or something, when I would have, or 99, when I would have seen this originally, probably around then. But maybe I haven't. I don't know. I remember that one of my main issues with this was I wondered if it was just something parading as deep, or, you know, just being sort of purposefully avant-garde and confusing, just in order to mask that, you know, it really wasn't necessarily that deep, just kind of just to make an interesting story. My suspicion is that this probably is a little bit deep, but I don't think it has to be either or, you know. At the time I was really like, man, is this deep or isn't it? Is this saying something, you know, profound or isn't it? And I think, you know, I need to rewatch that, but I think my answer in this is that it can kind of be both at the same time, you know. This show, I think, taken on its surface level, is kind of a slice of life show, and it's not even necessarily a slice of life comedy, but it's sort of like, I don't know, comedy drama. It's really, a lot of it is about the kind of the internal, you know, world of the main character, and, like, her relationship with Niea, who's basically, like, she's like a squatter in her apartment. So, like, she's literally like an actual alien from outer space, but sort of like this foreign entity, kind of like something along the lines of a beggar or a freeloader, like literally squatting in her apartment. She found her in her closet, and she basically won't go away, and she hounds her to feed her, and she's sort of this thorn in her side, but at the same time she's kind of like, they have a relationship where they're dependent on each other to a certain extent. So you have these themes of dependency and things like that. The main character here, again, Mayuko, was it? Mayuko, yeah. She lost her father. Seems like her mother is still around. They don't really address exactly what their relationship is and why she's living on her own and struggling, working jobs and things like that. But her mother is still around. But they address right at the first episode, I think, that her father has passed away. And so there's sort of dependence and independence. I think is something that is a theme again. I'm as an adult, more of an adult now, really am looking at this in terms of its themes more than like its plot, I guess. So a lot of this is also about struggles too, So you have, like I said, it's this kind of poor area of the town, and like everyone is kind of struggling to get by and kind of like helping each other out. And I guess, in some ways just like the natural kind of like resentment and community that that comes from that, and sort of like the tensions and dynamics that come from like being insiders or outsiders. Again, like when I put it that way too, it sounds very Japanese, and this character is dealing with a lot of things that that resonate with me, and I think with a lot of other people too, just sort of about like just the condition of life. She is kind of shy and introverted. She is having to struggle and work very hard for like kind of the meager, things that she does have, and and so she's struggling with these things like, kind of sort of managing other people's perceptions of her, and feel her own feelings of shame about maybe the conditions in which she's living, or whether like she can afford to buy a drink when she's out, or like have enough money for this or that, and things like what is she going to do with her life, and how does she feel about dating and and socializing and things like that. And so she's just sort of dealing with a lot of just modern life stuff. So I think this is tremendously interesting to watch, just as maybe to have watched as a very young man, and to be watching it now as a middle-aged man. That's what I am, and it is it's interesting. I think this is a lot more interesting on my second watch than it was originally. I think originally, honestly, I'll say like I was a little bored with this. It is slow, and it does. You kind of have to kind of get into the heads of the characters and the feelings and sort of what they're going through, and even the characters, like there are other adult characters. I guess most of them are on here, so you get involved with like the woman who runs the bathhouse, like the guy who runs the boiler room, an old lady who lives there, who we have no idea who she is from the context of this. She could be one of these characters' parents, or it's very, like, I just realized they don't even cover that at all. Like her friend who's obsessed with aliens and things like that. And so again, like it is, I kind of wonder, like, her friend, like, is she kind of a stand-in for Japanese people who are very interested in other people's cultures? Are the aliens who are kind of appropriating cultures of other sort of cultures that are nearby to Japan and important to them? I mean, curry comes up a lot in this. The Indian alien is he's kind of he's running a convenience store. He makes curry for the other aliens and stuff. So it's very it's very and so I don't necessarily have the context for how foreigners are perceived in Japan or are treated, and especially, I mean, this was almost 20 years ago too in Japan. So again, I don't know how things are the same or have changed. So yeah, so there's a lot going on in this series, but it is, I think, rather slow paced. I enjoyed watching it. Again, I watched it. I think I started it last night and finished it today. It's a full. Well, the last. Oh, this is the last. This is the last DVD. So it's only 13 episodes. So it's not a long series. It's kind of like the series that we have now. They're like 12 or 13 episodes long. But I mean, suffice to say, I enjoyed this quite a lot. I think that, you know, if you wanna just be a little introspective and think a little bit about, like, I don't know, just life, you know, if you're going through any of these struggles, or you can identify with any of the characters in this, it's a very interesting show. It was really it was pleasant to watch, and I feel like I got more out of it this time than before. And I'm also, like, I'm not expecting that much from it. I'm not expecting it to be, you know, Evangelion or you know, Steins Gate or Death Note or something that, you know, it just kind of is really masterfully structured and has, like, you know, really high watermarks in its genres. I mean, I wouldn't say this is a low watermark in its genre. It's kind of, again, like an introspective sort of slice of life drama comedy thing. It's very interesting. I would really recommend that you guys check it out if you haven't. I haven't looked into. I was just reading Wikipedia, and or something was saying that I think Discotek or somebody picked this up and was planning to release it on Blu-ray or DVD again, like last year. So I don't know if they did that. These are the old Pioneer releases of this that I just picked up used because I wanted to watch this again. But you know, so suffice to say, I am actually planning next, if you're interested, in watching Haibane Renmei, I believe. Haibane Renmei, yes. So this is another of Yoshitoshi Abe's shows. So I don't know exactly who was writing, like, the screenplay and stuff for this, but apparently this is based on a doujinshi, so it's sort of like just a self-published manga that he did. You know, again, he being more of, like, kind of an illustrator themselves, and so they ended up adapting it into an anime. Now, this actually is on Crunchyroll. I picked up this DVD set just like a few years ago. I found this maybe 4 or 5 years ago tops at a thrift store when I was out, and I was just like, oh, I'm going to pick that up. But, you know, I do remember, like I said, like my buddy and I, we watched Lane and then picked up Niea because of that, and I think I remember my buddy picking up, like, at least the first volume of Haibane Renmei, and I think, like, when I watched it back then, it was just boring, and I'm like, kind of after Niea, and then we watched this, and I just didn't care, you know. But again, I was young. I'm curious to see that. I think next, and just sort of see another Yoshitoshi Abe thing. I think that will be fun. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me again for whenever I feel like making another video. Take care.